All right, so welcome to our intro to Unity talk. So this is going to be our second meeting. The first one was just, kind of a brief interview or intro of like what we do at Spartasoft, but this time we're actually going to delve into some software and just do a very basic tutorial of Unity. So let's continue from there. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping. We are having our first game jam on the 2nd of October, and that's going to go through the 4th. So that's really where you guys will be applying your skills that you will learn in these weekly meetings. So definitely go to some of those game jams. We have some awesome pictures of members. You can see how everyone is super happy, But then we have more serious pictures of people developing. It's awesome.
Game jams are great.
Yeah, it's super fun. And if you weren't there at last meeting, it's basically you make a game in 48 hours, so over a weekend.
So it'll be like 5 p.m. on Friday to 5 p.m. on Sunday, and then we show everybody what we made.
All right, so do any of you remember what a game engine is when we described it last time? What's up?
What is
you raised your hand.
Question?
What is a game engine, Evan?
It's like the underlying hardware that runs, or not the hardware, the software that runs the game.
Yeah, okay, so you're basically combining all the art, the programming, the design, the audio into one thing, and that one thing that we use is called Unity. It's our game engine, and that's what outputs the game for people to play. So there's a lot of different game engines out there. There's Unreal, there's Unity, there's the CryEngine, there's more.
Yeah, Autodesk just recently released one.
Stingray, yeah. Yeah, I think it's called Stingray, but MSU uses Unity because, first of all, it's user-friendly, it's very easy to pick up, and then we have it's easy to learn, and a lot of the things are just drag and drop in it, which is really helpful, and then it's also going to be free too, so you can just download it for free for personal use. If you actually want to sell a game that you've made, you have to get the professional version, I think, because right now it's just educational. All right, so I guess we'll just jump into the demo.
Did you have a question, by the way? You raised.
Oh, you know what? I can ask you later.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to interrupt us at any time. That's totally cool. If you have any question, just go for it. All right, so I'm just going to open up Unity right here. And now the first thing I'm going to do is create a new project. And then I'll name it something like Spartasoft Unity Fun. Okay. Create project. All right. And then another thing I'm going to do is, were you guys able to download the asset pack that we posted on Facebook? Did anyone has it? Okay, thumbs up.
Did anyone have trouble with it at all?
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I have Unity open, and then all I have to do is let me grab the asset package. So it's called Spartasoft Unity Demo, and I'm going to put it into my project folder. And then it'll give you the list of all the assets that you're importing. So just click Import All. Yay, I'm getting script here.
Oh boy.
Okay. All right. So what I have here is I have the hierarchy, the project, and then the inspector pane. So the project this contains all of the assets that you have in your game. So for example, if I have some cheeseburger ingredients that Chris made, and if I take one of these, I can drag them into the game scene. And you can see that now I have lettuce in my game scene. So I can drag all these in if you want to. But for now, I'll just go ahead and delete these. Oops. All right. So if you weren't aware, today we're going to make a rollerball game, which you basically just control a ball that rolls, and we're going to be collecting things. Oh yeah, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you know how big your 3D object is going to appear when you drag it in there? Because I made this ring in 3ds Max, and I was just wondering, I don't even know how big this thing is. What if I drag it in there and it's giant?
Yeah, so I know in Maya you can change what the scale factor is. I think you can go between centimeters and something else. So you might have I'm sure that there's something like that in Max. So I'm not exactly sure what Unity, like the units of measurement in Unity are, but if you match them up, just like if you look it up and say, hey, like, does Unity use centimeters, then you can like make your, like switch your units over in 3ds Max to centimeters, and then it should like be equal.
There's also another easy fix. Like if you look right here, you see where it says scale factor, and it says 1. That means it's going to be 1-to-1 from what your model is to what Unity is. So if your ring is, say, really large or really small, you can always change that to, say, like 0.1 or 10, and it'll change it right in Unity for you.
Cool. All right, and then, so the first thing I'm going to do is we need ground. We need like something for the ball to roll on. So all I have to do is click on Game Object up here, and here you can select 3D Object and then Plane. So this we will call ground. If you just double click on the name of an object, you can rename it.
That's a slow double click, by the way.
Yeah, you have to like click once and then click another time, like really slow. If you do it rapidly, it won't do anything. It's kind of weird how Unity does that. So now I have this plane in my scene. Some things I can do with this is I can translate it, like move it up and down. And then I can rotate or scale it with these handles. If you only want to like scale or move in one direction, then you can grab one of these handles and just pull in one direction. And then you can also rotate it. Okay. And then another important thing to mention is actually how to like navigate around this scene. So you want to be able to rotate, and then you also want to be able to pan like this, and then also zoom in and out. So what you want to do is if you have a MacBook, you can hold down the Option key, but if you have Windows, I believe it's Alt. So go ahead and create your plane, and then try holding down Option or Alt, and then take the right mouse button or left mouse button, and then just click and drag, and you'll see that you can rotate. And then if you keep holding down the Option key, you can also, I think it's, middle mouse click, and then you can pan around the scene. And then if you want to zoom in and out, just use your scroll wheel on your mouse. Yeah, these are like the fundamental like transformation tools, just navigating your scene. And it's actually pretty cool because it's the same as Maya. So if you're working in Maya a lot, like you'll just pick this up really easily. It might be the same for Max, I'm not sure.
No, I was getting really frustrated. I'm trying to translate my skills from Max to Maya, and I mean, you can do a lot of the same stuff, but I've heard that Maya is better, so I'm trying to use that, and just so many of the controls are different, just to do simple things like rotate is different, so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Learn that.
All right, so now we have our ground. But it's pretty boring because it's just plain white, you know? So let's give it like a more grassy texture. So I think I have a material in here. Actually, I don't, so I'll have to create a new material. That's totally fine because if you right-click like anywhere in the project folder, you'll get this create menu. So once you hover over create, you can choose material. And materials are the objects you're going to put on, well, they're not objects, but you put them on objects to give them color. So I'll name this like ground, ground matte. And then you can change the color of it right here by double clicking this little color box. I'll give it like a nice green. And now just to keep my project organized, I can drag it into the materials folder. So now what happens is if I want to make this actually green, I can just drag and drop this material right on the plane. So that's like one of the features that we like about Unity is because it's like drag and drop. It's really easy to use. All right, is everyone caught up with that? No? No? Do you guys need any clarification?
Like, does anyone need any help with anything exactly, or?
It's good now? Yeah?
Everyone doing all right? All right.
Okay, so I accidentally made a mistake, so we're gonna have to do one more step. What we have to do is Unity has like preset asset packs that you can download if you just want to experiment with things. So I guess this is a good place to show you. So what we need to do is if we go to assets, we need to go to import package, and then I believe it's in cross-platform input. So let's download that. Actually, no,
That's
it's the wrong one, I think.
that's
It's in the controller one,
okay.
actually. So import package, and then it should be in characters, actually. My bad. Yeah, okay. All right, so once you go to asset, import package, characters, just hit import all. Shouldn't take too long. And just make sure you're connected to the internet for that too.
Characters?
Yeah, characters.
Yes.
All right, cool.
There we go.
Now that should work.
Yep.
Yay. All right, so now going from there, I'm going to create the actual ball that we'll use to roll. So what do you guys think we have to do to make a sphere? Yeah, game object. Okay, so game object, 3D object, and then let's create a sphere. And let me center this up a little bit.
So that bottom window is just for the object that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so good question. So what it is that this is the scene that you used to develop, but this bottom screen is what the player is going to see when they actually play the game. So if you go ahead and press, let me just hit maximize on play. If you press this play button, this is what the player is currently going to see. And then when you press on play, it goes back to your like developer view.
So that map that you created isn't in the game, it's just kind of there?
Oh,
That's actually a tricky thing. Planes are one directional. So a plane or a quad, they only show one direction. And so if you look at it from the other direction, you don't see anything.
yeah, and
So what was happening there is the camera was just underneath the plane. So that's why you didn't see it.
yeah, so go ahead. If you want to be able to see the plane, just take your camera. It's called main camera in the scene right here. And then just move it up, and then you can rotate it to look down onto the plane. All right, and I'm actually going to make this ground a little bit bigger. All right. So once again, I'm going to hit play, and you'll notice that nothing is going to happen. And you can even see that the ball's just floating in the air. So what we need to do is apply like physics to this ball. And that's really easy because all you have to do is add a single component to it. And I'll explain a little bit about components. So Unity is like object oriented. So you can see that all of these objects are objects, and then each have the different components. So if I click on the sphere, I can see that it has a mesh filter, a sphere collider, a mesh renderer, and then it has its default material. But what I need to do to have gravity apply to it is just hit add component, and then I'm going to type in rigid body. All right, so now that I have rigid body, if I hit play, it should hit the floor. Yeah. Yeah. Is everyone good with that? Rigid bodies, physics, awesomeness. Okay, and I've gotten pretty far, so I actually want to save this. So I'm just going to hit Command S if you're on a Mac or Control S if you're on a PC. And then you can save this scene. So I'll just call it like test scene.
Be sure to save often.
Yeah. Anything you don't save, if something goes wrong, if something crashes, it's gone.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Somehow I zoomed out of my scene. Is there a way I can just like click on an object and zoom in on it?
Yeah.
Yes. So if you click on an object in the hierarchy and press F, it'll immediately go. The camera will focus on that object.
Yeah.
It didn't do that in last week, did it? Yeah.
What? Oh.
Sorry.
All right. And just to keep it consistent and organized, I'm going to create a new folder. So to create a new folder, just right-click in your scene, then hit create, then folder, and I'm going to call this scenes. And then in some ways, you can think of scenes as levels. So usually when you're working on a game, you're going to have multiple scenes. So you definitely want to have a folder to keep them all in one spot. Okay, so far what we've done is we've created a plane, put a material on it, and then we've created a sphere, and then we gave it a rigid body. Now the next thing we need to do is actually make the sphere move around. So using Unity's kind of like default assets that we downloaded, if you go into the Unity demo assets and then go to the scripts folder, you're going to see two scripts called ball and ball user controller. What you want to do with those is drag and drop them onto the ball. So we're not going to go over programming today, but since we gave you these scripts for download, if you are a programmer and want to learn more about it, then feel free to look them over. But if you're more of an artist, you don't have to. But we have them there for you to look at. But for now, what I'm going to do is just take the ball script and I'm going to drag and drop it on the sphere. And then take ball user controller and drag and drop it on the sphere. So now that I have, well, I'll double check to make sure those are on my sphere. So we have the ball script right here, that's another component. And then we have the ball user controller, which is another component. So if I hit play, I should be able to move around with W, A, S, and D. And then I can also jump with the space bar. Let me rename this. Play your sphere. Yeah, question.
I may have missed a step.
Okay.
Well, it's falling through the ground.
Yeah, so we have different folders that we have for us. So if you go to
Alright, so I want to show you guys one more thing. So what happens when there's no collider on the floor?
Ball's gonna fall through.
Yeah. So if I take this, if I click on my ground and then I uncheck mesh collider, it's going to turn off the collider of the floor. So now when I press play, the ball is just going to fall through the floor and travel like infinitely through this 3D space. All right, so I had a really good question of like how do you remove and edit components? So for example, what happens when I put a rigid body on my plane? I'm not going to want my ground to fall through space. So since I accidentally put this rigid body on it, in order to remove it, I can click this little gear icon and then go to remove component. Okay, so are you guys ready to make some barriers to like enclose our ball? Because right now the ball can kind of just like fall off the edge of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
I mean, I'm not really.
We appreciate your encouragement.
Alright, so in order to make some walls, it's the same thing. All I have to do is go to Game Object, 3D Object, and I'm actually going to create a cube this time. Now, once you're on a team with like 3D artists, you really don't have to do this because you'll have the artists make the walls. But for now, since we're working with like the basic assets from Unity, just go to Game Object, 3D Object, Create Cube. And I'm going to rename this cube Wall 01. And then I need to scale this up just so it fits the width of the plane. And a cool trick to do this is if you have this little like X, Y, and Z tool up here. So if you hit the Y-axis, it's going to look at your development view from like the top down. So what I can do now is just scale this cube up to kind of match my plane. And by default, this cube has a box collider on it, so you don't have to worry about your ball automatically just like going right through the cube. But if this box collider was off, then your ball would just roll right through. Alright, so let me just scale this up a little bit more. And then I'm going to duplicate this over. To duplicate a game object, you press Command D. Just bring it to the other side. And now I'll duplicate it again. And you can actually rotate this with either the rotate tool, or if you want to have like the exact angle, you can just press 90. And this like kind of transform channel box. And to move and scale, to move an object, you just press W. To rotate it, press the E key, and then to scale it, press the R key. So W, E, and R are your main tools.
That's for moving around. E is for rotating it, and R is for scaling it. So you gotta change the handles to which one you want.
Okay, and then just for organization, kind of like folders, what you can do to keep your hierarchy view organized is you can right click and then create an empty game object. So I'm going to call this like art assets. And then all you have to do to put your objects in this game object is you just have to drag and drop. This is called parenting. It's kind of like a folder hierarchy you would see like on your typical computer.
Putting art in quotes, because we can do better.
What? That's weird. Okay. Alright, so now if I hit play, I can start rolling my ball in this environment. So now it won't fall off the edge. So another fun thing you can do is if you look under rigid body or the sphere collider on your sphere object, you can see that there's a section called material. If you click this little circle, you can apply different material to it. So if you want it to be like a metal to feel more like a pinball, then you can click on that. And then if you play it, you'll notice that it like feels different when you control it. And then once again, if you just go to, if you click on your sphere and then go to sphere collider and click on material, you can choose if like what you want your sphere to feel like. So if you want it to be icy and slip around, then you can put on ice. Let's see what bouncy does.
How do you get to the material?
Click on your sphere, and then under the component sphere collider,
Okay.
there's a section called materials. So now this guy's just like bouncing around.
Can you still make it jump by
No, it's
Yeah, you should be able to.
Yeah, and then also you can type in
I was just wondering
rotation
if
right
it's
here.
small.
If you want
Yeah,
it to be exactly
you have to
90.
the script checks to make sure the ball's on the ground before you jump. So if you try to jump while it's already bouncing, then it's not going to work.
So no knuckles glitch.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure that's
Oh, no,
bounce
I bet it
higher than
doesn't
one.
stop
So it's
bouncing.
gaining energy every time it bounces.
Okay, so does everyone have walls surrounding their little like environment for the ball?
Getting there.
Everyone has made some walls? Okay, a few more minutes? All right. Yeah, and then while we're waiting for some people to finish, go for it.
Free roam for my ball.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create collectibles. So what we want is we want the player to be able to control the ball, roll around, and then collect these objects around the scene. And then if you go to game object, 3D object, and then cube, we can just name this collectible. All right, so for now, I'm just going to transition over to the cube to use as a collectible. So what I can do from here is I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called prefabs. Now, you want to make something a prefab if it's going to be used more than once. So because I want to have multiple collectibles in the scene, I'm going to go ahead and make it a prefab. And to do that, all you have to do is take the object from your scene view and then drag and drop it into your prefabs folder. So now you can see that it has turned into the prefabs or the collectible prefab. And then the color of the text also changed to blue, whereas all the other ones are white because they're not a prefab. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and then apply the collectible script to the sphere. So if you go into Unity demo assets and then scripts, I wrote like a really small script on just like collecting something. So if you drag and drop that onto the sphere, then it's going to be one step that we need to do in order to collect. Because right now, I believe should get in, or this isn't going to collect, because I need to do, first I need to set the collider to, on the collectible to trigger, and then I also need to tag this, and I'll go over that in just a second. So basically a trigger is, you're saying that when you run into this object, you want something to happen. So when I run into the trigger of the collectible, I want it to disappear. So if you hit is trigger, then right now you're just going to be able to go through it. But if we take a look at something called tags, these will allow you to actually collect them. Basically what happens is the script I wrote, it says if you run into an object that has a trigger and is also tagged as collectible, then it will collect it. So in order to create a tag, we can just go to this section right here that says tag, and then we'll create a new one through add tag. So I believe we just want to hit the plus button and then call it collectible. Now you can see when I click back onto my collectible object, it hasn't been tagged. It's kind of weird. You have to go back into it and then manually assign it as collectible. Alright, so now we have the collider, it's a trigger, and we also have the object tagged as collectible, so this should disappear when I run into it. Yeah. So what we can do now is we can just duplicate this prefab over and over, and now we have like multiple collectibles. So if I go ahead and play, actually, did I apply? Yeah. I can go ahead and just collect all these. All right, so what happens when you have an artist that says, I want to change the color of the cubes? Like, let's say you have like 1,000 cubes in the scene. Are you going to manually assign each color? That would kind of be a pain. So what you can do is, because this is a prefab, everything updates with a prefab. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new material. So create material, and I'll name this collectible material. And I'll just make it red. Now if I drag and drop this onto collectible, you can see that nothing happened yet, but what I have to do is hit apply. Now if I hit apply, all of them turn red.
But if you want to only keep it to that one collectible, like you want multiple colors for your collectibles, you can just drag and drop that new material onto just the one collectible.
Yeah, and just don't hit apply.
Okay.
And now
Yeah.
you have to go.
Apply, when you hit apply on something that is an instance of a prefab, what it'll do is it'll say like all of the data that's associated with this version of the prefab, all of the versions of this prefab are going to be exactly like that.
Yeah, and also when you apply something onto a prefab in your scene, it's also going to update in your prefab folder. So like originally when I dragged the collectible into the prefabs folder, it was just white, but then I applied it and now it's turned red. So that's pretty handy. Okay. Is everyone good with the collectibles? Yeah.
So is there an easy way to make the like collectibles constantly rotate or something, or would you have to write a script for that?
You have to write a script for that.
Yeah, you can either write a script, which I feel like would be the easiest way, or you can put an animation on it through Unity.
Okay.
A script for that is actually relatively simple.
It's very simple, and we'll do something like that, I'm sure, in 2 weeks when we have a programming talk.
Yeah, that'll be coming up.
All right. So the next thing I want to do is actually display the count, because right now we're just collecting these cubes and nothing's happening. So I want to have a counter. So the first thing we need to do is I commented out a few lines of text in my script. So if you double click on collect object, it's going to bring up a program called MonoDevelop. This is an IDE that comes default with Unity. So we just want to uncomment these lines right here. Oops, not that. these top lines.
Oh, I think I know
What?
Go to.
Oh, thanks.
Your
All right, so the lines we want to uncomment are going to be public text burger count, int count 0, and then the line in the start function, which is burger count.text, and then count plus plus, and then the burger count.text. All right, and then go ahead and press Command or Control Save. Still got to create a panel. All right, so now we have that done. We need something to actually display the 2D like user interface on the screen. So that's going to be called a canvas. And if you go to Game Object and then UI, you can create a canvas right here. So once again, it's Game Object UI Canvas. And now let's see what happens when I focus in on this. So I'm going to press, I have canvas selected, and I'll press F. That's going to focus in on it. And then another cool trick you can do is there's this 2D perspective toggle. So if I hit 2D, it's going to let me see it from just like straight on. Oops, don't know what happened there. This little button right here, the 2D button. So now we need actual text to go into it. So if I hit Game Object, UI, Text, you can see that right here I have this object that I can move around, and it just says New Text.
UI is very complicated and very finicky. We're not going to get deep into it today, but we'll have a talk later on in the semester about more details about UI.
All right, so now that I have the UI, I can do a few things with this text. I'm actually going to make the font size a little bit bigger, so let's do like 28. Then scale that up, and I'm going to save it. So now I'm going to try to play this, but it's going to get an error. And that's because we need to tell the script where this text object is. So what you can do is, let's see if I can find my sphere. So if you click on your sphere, your controller, and then scroll down to your collect object script, there's going to be a little section that says burger count, and there's nothing in there yet. So what I can do is take the canvas text and then drag and drop it into the burger count. So now once I start playing, every time I collect one of these collectibles, it increments it by 1. And once again, feel free to look over these scripts if you are interested. But in 2 weeks, we'll have the programming talk, and then the week beforehand is going to be the 3D art talk. All right, so just to recap, so far what I did is first I had to uncomment a few lines in this in the collect object script, and those lines were the public text burger count, int count, burger count.text, count plus plus, and then burger count.text, this one down here. So I uncommented those, and then make sure you save the file. So press Command S, and then I dragged the script onto my player sphere. So if I look at my player sphere, then I have my collect object script right here. And then the next thing what I did is we needed something to actually display the count. So I went to Game Object, UI, and then Canvas, and I created a canvas. And then, so you can kind of see I have my canvas right here. And then the next thing what I did is I went to Game Object, UI, and then Text. And then once we had our text, I can go back to the player sphere object, look at the collect object script right here, and then drag this text object into this like parameter. Is everyone fine with that? Is that explained well, or do you have any questions? Yeah, I know this can be pretty new, and I'm probably going a little fast just because we had an hour. But we have this recorded, so you can always go back to that. And then there's also Unity tutorials, like directly from their website, which are very thorough as well.
Also, during the game jam, like when we're working with smaller groups, it's a lot easier to help people out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like, don't feel intimidated right now. It's just like it's harder with a large group, just because I know like everybody has their individual questions. But definitely during game jams, like Chris said, with smaller groups, we're there to help you. And since this is your first time opening Unity for many of you, it's definitely like a new thing to pick up, and it can be kind of intimidating at first. But
And don't be afraid if by the time game jam rolls around, like you don't remember every little detail of this. Don't worry about it. Like you can show up to a game jam with no experience at all, and work from the ground up. It's a great, great, great place to learn. That's where I started. I didn't know any of this before I got to the game jam.
oh, yeah, that was funny. All right, so who has a rollerball made? Yeah, yeah. All right, that's awesome. Who understands how the rollerball was made? Awesome.
That's good too.
Okay, so we have some more people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fun
cool.
fact. This is kind of the first actual like development stuff that you do in the minor. So the first project you'll do on your own, you'll start out with a tutorial of like essentially this tutorial, and then they'll tell you like with some specifications like make it a little better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you like just by coming here today and doing this with us, you're already a step up. If you're going into 455 this year, if you're going in next year, you already have this kind of under your belt.
Just the fact that you're looking at Unity right now.
Yeah, that already gives you a leg up for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the basic idea behind this talk was to just get you used to the user interface of it. So you have your like hierarchy, your project, and then your inspector, and also components, because at the core of Unity is objects. So if you know how to manipulate those objects with like translate, rotate, and scale, and also add components to them, then you're in a pretty good position. All right, so we only have about 5 minutes left, so there are a few more slides that we had going. So once again, I guess just some key concepts to get out of this talk. Is the scene view. That's what we work in. And then the game view, that's what the player is going to see as they play the game. And then we have the inspector, and that's where you can add and remove like components to certain objects. And then we also have the hierarchy, which contains all of the objects in your scene, and then the project, which are all of your assets in your project. So you can have, let's say you have like an object called, I don't know, like Rockwell 1 in your project tab. You can have Rockwell 1 in like multiple, like a lot of your scenes because it's in your entire project. And then we have prefabs, which are really useful for having multiples of an object and then updating them all at once. Assets, which you have like art assets, you have scripts, there's audio as well. And then play mode. So if you just press play, that's getting into play mode. And then if you click off of it, then you're out of play mode. One important thing to note, though, actually, is if you're in play mode and you decide to make a change, like, let me do something really quick. If you decide to make a change in here, it's not going to update. So be sure whenever you make an actual change to your game, you're not in play mode.
Yeah, like it'll update immediately, but then as soon as you stop play mode, it'll like all go back to the way it was before. Like nothing saves while you're in play mode.
It's like one of the best ways to test stuff out.
Yeah, it's a good way to test, but you have to be careful you don't change anything and then forget that you're in play mode.
All right, so the schedule for the next talks is going to be next week. We have like a lot of our e-board is comprised of artists, so like pretty much all of us are going to go over all the disciplines of 3D art. And then we're going to have programming with Scott the next week. He is currently not here right now, but he's an awesome programmer. And then we have our game jam on the 2nd, which is going to be super fun. So by the time the game jam rolls around, like if you want to do some art, you'll be able to do art for the game jam. If you want to do programming, then you can do that for the game jam. And also, I believe normally before game jams, we'll do like an hour-long session of just like a tutorial, like for if you forget stuff. So the hour before the game jam actually starts, like we'll have a little like R&D workshop type thing going. So if you weren't able to make these, then we can teach you within that hour.
And we'll also be there to help too.
Yeah, like all of us and then a bunch of people that are in the minor will be there to help, and you can ask anyone any questions. There's no dumb questions at a game jam.
Yeah.
One more thing. Also, one more thing. We apologize for the heat. There are about 60 of you guys in here right now, which is probably most people the room's ever seen. So right now the temperature is like 81 degrees, and there's nothing we can do to change it this minute. But we'll be calling the people at facilities. Hopefully, we can get the temperature knocked down, or we'll carry some box fans over here next week if we need to. But yep.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming.
If you want to stick around and see some of our rollaballs from last year, we'll just probably play around with those for 10 minutes or so. If you just want to come up and ask questions.